Just going to assume it's working as usual. I can see the chat. Okay, looks like it's working. Welcome back to the GLFFL Weekly Pre-wind. First thing I want to do is to thank the interim hosts of the Pre-wind for Week 11. That, of course, is Drunk Santa, prior trophy winner, and Coach Schmidt, the Schmidt Show, the league statistician. Thank you both for putting in a B+ effort for that pre-wind on short notice. So I'm giving you a little bit of a bump there to an A- since it was short notice. Filling in my stead while I work out some family stuff. Had to pay off some debts, but I am free now, and I am back to host the pre-wind as God intended. So thank you both. Moving on. What do we do first? We look at last week's results. So we are going to look at last week's results. And let's go ahead and just start off with this stinker. It was 9-1 versus 0-10. Life finds Elway taking Doobie Ashtray down to the basement, tying him up, taping up his mouth, and then doing inhumane things to his body. That's what happened there. Cooter's Crew, solid score, taking down Ditgen a box. They are in a bit of a free fall. They need some help to get into the playoffs. We'll get to that later. Drunk Santa, instant revenge on the Timken Terrors, putting up a very Timken score. Second highest score of the week. So just missed out on that high score. Patty Cakes. This was the lowest scoring matchup of the week, probably. Well, I guess that would have been Doobie and Life Finds Elway, but not because of Life Finds Elway. But Patty Cakes taking down the Schmidt Show. So the Schmidt Show, coming off that high, is back on the low. Unfortunately, they need some help as well to get into the playoffs. And then high score of the week. Bad news for the new and improved Jungle Humpers, who had the third highest score of the week. Robo Pearson, their first high score of the year. They technically still have a chance to get into the playoffs. They will probably need to win out, and Timken would need to lose out, and Robo Pearson would need to somehow surpass Timken in scoring, which would be next to impossible. But Robo Pearson at least getting $20 in their pocket before they bid the season farewell. But still, even if you don't make the playoffs, as I do every year, I encourage you to continue to manage your team as if you are playing for money, because you are, because everyone still has a chance at that high score. But this was the highest scoring week of the season across the league. Previous high was, I'm going to pull up the stat sheet here. You won't be able to see this. This is on a different computer. According to Coach Schmidt's stat sheet, week 5 was the previous high. The league averaged 120 points across the board. This week, just under 124, 123.8. And I would imagine that's probably going to be the opposite this coming week, because we have the bipocalypse coming up. But we'll get to the matchups here in a bit. Taking a look at the standings, 1 and 2, the 1 seed's pretty much set unless I were to lose out and Cooter's Crew were to win out. They could overtake that 1 seed. But it's essentially going to be Cooter's Crew, new to improved Jungle Humpers, Drunk Santa, and Patty Cakes playing for that 2 seed. I think that would be tough for Patty Cakes to do. They are this year's Robo Pearson of 2023, in which they, I believe, are the 9th highest scoring team or second lowest scoring team in the league, but they are sitting at 7-4. All I got to do is get in. Fantasy football is a game of luck. But it's this sixth spot that will be an interesting race to the end. Ditka box, the Schmidt Show, Timken Terrors, both the latter two, or the prior two, chasing Timken, who is the second highest scoring team in the league, which is pretty amazing considering new and improved Jungle Humpers have had a league high 4 high scores this season. 4 high scores for new and improved Jungle Humpers. And I've spoken about this before, the boomer bust nature of their roster. So they have the potential to go big, and they have the potential to bust. We'll see how they fare come playoff time. Will that strategy be able to keep them afloat? Nobody knows. But yeah, high scorer of the week was Robo Pearson. What was I talking about here? Standings. It'll be interesting to see how that sixth seed plays out. Timken Terrors would be beside themselves if 2 years in a row they finished as a top 2 scoring team and didn't make the playoffs. At that point, you got to think it's bad mojo, not just bad luck. But I'll leave that for you guys to decide. What else do we do here? Oh, pregrets of the week. We're going to move on to pregrets of the week. Sam Darnold, and newly acquired Tyreek Hill sitting on the bench of the Schmidt Show. If they had substituted them for Jacoby Myers and Russell Wilson, who gave him stinkers, he certainly would have won this game, one that he needed to win. And he has a tall task ahead of him next week. So let's go back and take a look at... No, before that, okay. I'm changing the format again, slightly. So I have my oh shit stats of the week. As you guys know, I like to highlight some stats. And I've got a few stats I would like to go over this week. Just some that popped out at me. I figured, you know what? Let's make a whole segment out of it. I've talked about Timken Terrors. They're 5-6, second highest scoring team in the league. And to put it into points per game, they're averaging 128 points per game. But they are still only 5-6, which is absurd. Another fun stat: 4 of the 5 lowest scores output this year were posted by Doobie Ashtray. They are 0-10 or 0-11 for a reason, and it's because they don't score very much. Robo Pearson, they scored 161 points this week to get the high score. That is Robo Pearson's highest output since week 6 of 2021. That is over 3 years since they had a score that high. Welcome back to the 160-point club. We talked about the highest scoring week of the season across the league. Okay. Here's a fun one. So this is just something I wanted to point out to prove a little bit of a point about fantasy football. We're going to go over here. And this is what I was referring to as the interactive section. So hopefully someone is watching live. But if not, you can just comment on the video. I am doing this a little earlier than normal. But I've got quarterback A and quarterback B here. Quarterback A, 2,400 yards. Quarterback B, 2,275. Okay, we're close in that range. Touchdown to interception ratio, 15 to 11 to 14 to 6. You know, that's a plus on the quarterback B side. Rushing yards, 167 to 295. Rushing touchdowns, 1 to 4. Quarterback B is the quarterback 7 on the year in fantasy football. Quarterback A is the quarterback 15 on the season in fantasy football. Quarterback A is owned in 99% of Yahoo leagues. Quarterback B is owned in 65% of Yahoo leagues. Anyone wager to guess who these two quarterbacks are? Quarterback A is Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs. Quarterback B is Bo Nix, rookie quarterback for the Denver Broncos. Now, I'm not bringing this up as a Broncos Chiefs thing. I'm pointing this out because to make a point, showing you how a player's pedigree and their past success can cloud our judgment when it comes to fantasy football. Which quarterback would you want on your team going forward rest of the season? I think most people would say Bo Nix. He has that rushing upside. He has a better schedule. And the Chiefs just don't have as explosive of an offense as they've had in the past. Yet, most people are choosing Patrick Mahomes. He's being started in a higher percentage of leagues. So my point here is you got to always stay water when it comes to fantasy football. You got to be willing to drop a big name player and move on at any given point to win championships. That's my commissioner's adage of the day. I don't fucking know. Okay, we're gonna look at this week's matchups. We'll start off with Lifeline's Elway versus the Schmidt Show. Again, Schmidt Show needing some help to get into the playoffs. And I talked about the bipocalypse this week. And I'm falling victim to that. I don't have a quarterback to start in my Superflex, so will most likely be going with CeeDee Lamb, who has Cooper Rush throwing to him. So there's one advantage that the Schmidt Show has this week. I think the key here is going to be his big receivers. If Tyreek Hill can have one of his big breakout Tyreek Hill type of games that he's capable of, I think he's still capable of, and then Amon-Ra St. Brown can duplicate his success from last week, I think the Schmidt Show has a fighting chance. Combine that with the fact that, Geno Smith could easily go for 25 or 30 because they're behind against Arizona and they're throwing a lot. They just throw a lot in general. And then CeeDee Lamb goes out and puts up 6 points. That's a big advantage for the Schmidt Show. So this one, on paper, it looks like I might have an advantage. This one makes me a little nervous. This might be L number 2 coming on the season. It just depends on how some of these ancillary players perform for the Schmidt Show. Next up, we're going to go down to Noon Improved Jungle Humpers and Patty Cakes. Identical records, and they've gotten there in very different fashion. This one is much more of a lopsided matchup than the Lifeline's Elway Schmidt Show matchup is. I think Patty Cakes is desperately going to need some big performances from guys like Terry McLaurin. Austin Eckler would probably need to get into the end zone. Mark Andrews can't have another stinker. It's just a well-built roster by New and Improved Jungle Humpers. He does have, like I said, a lot of boom or bust guys, but they boom more than they bust. So New and Improved Jungle Humpers might be busting all over Patty Cakes. Moving on, Timken Terrors, Doobie Ashtray, with the two teams behind Timken Terrors needing help to get into the playoffs. This bipocalypse could not come at a worse time for them. The Terrors have some big names on bye. Josh Allen, Jamar Chase has been otherworldly, but he's going against Doobie Ashtray. Will this be the first win of the season for Doobie Ashtray? It's probably his best chance, to be honest. If they get a big game out of Nick Chubb and maybe DJ Moore, we'll see who he starts at his other receiver. Christian Watson obviously has that big playability. He could pull off the upset, but it's still going to be a tall task. You have Derrick Henry over on the other side. He's good for 15 to 20 points, and then you just build around that. This is honestly one of the more interesting matchups of the week, which is strange considering it's the sixth place team versus the 10th place team who's 0-11. But given all the things I've brought up, we can't deny it. There's drama in this game considering Tim Quintero's trying to get into the playoffs. And then we got Robo Pearson, Ditka in a box. The Bipocalypse is hitting Ditka pretty hard here. We'll see who he plays and which version of Ramondre Stevenson we get if he has to go that route. Which he probably won't. Man, he probably should have moved a running back for a receiver at some point. But it looks like he's going to be going for some Tank Dell here, filling at receiver. Ditka in a box again. They need a win and they need help. And Robo Pearson coming off their big game, trying to play spoiler here. Honestly, another pretty close matchup when it all comes down to it. Honestly, I don't know what I think about this matchup. I think Christian McCaffrey is going to need to be the Christian McCaffrey of old. He hasn't looked that yet, but he also hasn't gotten into the end zone. He's getting lots of touches. I think he's going to have a big game for Ditka in a box to win this one. And then my matchup of the week. No Macho Man this week. He will come back at some point. I've just... we bought a new house. We haven't moved in. We're doing a lot of stuff to it. I have not had time to write another one. He will make a return before the season's end. I promise. But Cooter's Crew, second place versus fourth place. Drunk Santa, they have a chance at that 2 seed, as I discussed previously. This is honestly probably a pretty even matchup. We'll see what Cooter's Crew does with their second running back spot. Seems like perhaps Kareem Hunt might be taking a back seat at some point if Pacheco comes back. I don't know, is he injured? No, he just put up a stinker this past week. They're playing Carolina, who have, teams have been able to run all over them. So Kareem Hunt could easily get into the end zone this week, and you would need so these rookie wide receivers probably need to step up. Malik Neighbors hasn't really gotten back to where he was at the beginning of the season, but it seems like he's healthy now, and Tampa Bay, I think, is a plus matchup in that case. So, again, a close matchup here. Chuba Hubbard playing the Chiefs. That's a tough matchup. I don't, if I'm going to have to make a prediction, I'm going to say Drunk Santa wins this. But I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Cooter's Crew won by 25. Meaning I don't know fucking shit. That's fantasy football. But that's it. What do you guys think of me being back? Do you still like me?